Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside the White Tribe, Rhodesia's War 1966 to 1980. This is a game designed by Ben Madison and published by White Dog Games. It is the second in the Cold War trilogy, which I've already in the past covered the first one, which was Gorbachev, The Fall of Communism. And a third one is still in development to the best of my knowledge, which will deal with World War III. But let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game is all about. It says, in the struggle for African liberation, there were few easy choices. In many countries, white colonial rulers had sabotaged the black population by depriving them of education, leaving them dependent on white administrators and deliberately unprepared for self-government. Democracy was weakened by ancient tribal hatreds, compounded by the existence of arbitrary borders drawn by whites with no regard for local languages or cultures. Often, black people's hope for freedom was betrayed by their own rulers and factions that wanted all the power for themselves in what became a cynical exercise in one-party rule. One man, one vote, once. Hardest of all, in southern Africa, South Africa, the Portuguese colonies, and Rhodesia, large populations of white settlers fought to maintain their privileged servants and swimming pools lifestyle through segregation, racist laws, censorship, and imprisonment. In the White Tribe, you are the prime minister of the illegal settler state of Rhodesia, today's Zimbabwe, which broke from Britain in 1965. Your job in this solitaire game is to defeat a guerrilla war and overcome the obstacles of party politics, tribal resentments, and racial extremism to stitch together a working coalition of population groups that can finally turn Rhodesia into a multiracial democracy built on compromise. Can you thread the needle in building a new nation that protects the rights of all its people? Or will your new nation be overwhelmed by a Chinese-backed Marxist-Leninist guerrilla terrorist army that seeks to make the genocidal tyrant Robert Mugabe dictator for life? This unusual balance of military and political factors makes the White Tribe an intriguing and very different sort of game. Advancing liberal policy positions to win over African public opinion can endanger you with the conservative European voters you depend on for power. At the same time, you have to persuade foreign powers that your reform agenda is moving ahead. They have different visions for Rhodesia than you do, and they can bring you down with economic sanctions or military intervention. And always looming over you are the unstable and unreliable Portuguese, whose empire in next-door Mozambique is vital to your strategic safety. In the White Tribe, will you emerge as the greatest statesman in the history of Africa, or will you watch your country crash and burn? Pretty in-depth explanation at the back of the game box. It says game components. It comes with an 11 by 17 inch game map, 88 two-sided counters, 16-page rulebook, 2-page player aid card, 2-page charts and table card, 1-page turn record track, and a 6-sided die. It is solitaire. It's only a solitaire game for 1 to 3 hours. It takes ages 13 and up. Complexity is rated as a 4. It is 9, obviously on the solitaire scale. But that is what's on the back of the box. Now we'll take a look inside and see what we get in the box. Here are the components that you get, and these are double-sided, as was stated earlier. This is the front of the box. We've got some political people here. We've got the United Nations. We've got Ronald Reagan and other African leaders. We've got, looks like, military units here. And then we've got a whole bunch of policy counters down here, as well as British rule, elections, so on and so forth. All of those counters. And then there's the back of the counter themselves. These are used. Once they're flipped over, they're used. And that's pretty much the counters. Then we've got looks like our player aid cards here. This is, I think, the event cards. I like how they have this set up. They have it set up like a newspaper format, the Rhodesia Herald. We've got our CRT here, as well as looks like I said, events. And then on the back, we've got the detailed sequence of play and charts and tables here as well. And that's single-sided, and this is single-sided, so they can actually probably go together if you want to just put them together in a laminate them, put them together, and then you can just flip them over and read them as you need them, or keep them separated. Maybe that's why they have that. Maybe it's necessary to keep them separated. We've got our manual, which we'll come back to, and we've got our, let's put that on the side. We've got our map here of Rhodesia, and the turn record track, and this is the ZR election results, RF popularity track, and House of Assembly results that goes alongside that. And the only thing missing in the game was 1d6, but that's no big deal. Got plenty of d6s. I can use one of those in my collection. But the map of Rhodesia, it is surrounded by Botswana, Zambia, Mozambique, South Africa, around the borders, and then you've got, it looks like terror level is what this is, not a turn track, but this is the terror level here, and it does appear to be somewhat state of siege-ish in the look. I'm not sure exactly, because you've got these different borders and you've got die rolls here, so not sure how much of a state of siege aspect it has to it, but if it's 1 to 3 hours, I'm not expecting too heavy it may have a state of siege influence, but it's not going to be very much a state of siege game. They generally don't run that long. An hour is really on the high end for a state of siege game. But we've got table of contents here. It starts off with introduction on page 1, goes all the way to page 11 for victory and defeat, and then also on page 11 is a list of events and policies, and then your designer's notes and credits are on page 14. But we've got our introduction here, and then we've got the counter examples that we've already looked at, what each of those do. Then we've got our setup and Rhodesia Herald phase, the politics phase, and it goes here with the Rhodesia Herald. It says, the very first thing to do in a game turn is to consult the Rhodesia Herald. Take the current game turn number, 1 to 16, roll a die and add the 2 numbers to obtain a result. For example, on turn 7, if you roll a 5, the total would be 12, so you can consult the 12 roll. Then consult the list of events and apply each event that results from the die roll on the Herald in the order given. So yeah, that gives a lot of variability, as you know, we saw a good deal of events down here that can take place in order on any turn. So that gives a nice variability to it for repeat plays. Then we've got commercial phase, policy review phase, Chimurenga phase, and that's a fairly long one, cosmopolitics phase, Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, the endgame, victory and defeat, Lancaster House, and then we get into the list of events and policies here, and that goes all the way through the policy chits, and then we get to the designer's notes, which go all the way through to the back of the manual at page 16. Thankfully, they kept the smaller text, which is used for just the designer's notes, because they were trying to, I guess, squeeze everything in and not have to go to another page, get it into 16. They went with a smaller font, as you can see here. This is a smaller font here than it is on this side. They kept that just for the designer's notes, which is way better than doing that for the rule book itself. Thank you, White Dog Games, for doing that, because no one wants to be straining their eyes to try to read rules, especially in a rule book like this, which is very, very, very text heavy. There's very little, if any, images, especially for like illustrated examples of play. There are examples, and these are all in blue text like we've seen before in the past with Gorbachev. Those are where you get the call outs for examples of the mechanic that's being explained. But other than that, very text heavy rulebook. So thankfully it's not tiny text. But that is a look at everything you get inside the White Tribe, Rhodesia's War 1966 to 1980. This is Volume 2 in Ben Madison's Cold War trilogy. It is from White Dog Games. So if you've been looking out for this, or if you're interested in it, you can order it now directly from White Dog Games. And this gives you an idea what to expect when you get it. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.